Life, like software, can be debugged, rewritten, and optimized. After 20 years of coding software, I recoded my life. That journey defined wellness for me. A calm nervous system, steady blood sugar, trust in the body, and doing what you love. This season, I'll walk you through that transformation. In future seasons, I'll be joined by guests to deepen the conversation. In today's episode, we'll talk about how the body reveals the truth. No words needed. I'm Mary Toscano, and this is Coding Wellness. In the last episodes, I talked about how I left engineering to spend more time with my daughter, Tiana. And while she was in school, I decided to go to massage school and then nutrition school with zero intention of doing either for a living. I just wanted to learn. But then the stock market unexpectedly crashed and I needed income fast. And even though I never wanted to be a massage therapist, I took a job doing massage at a busy spa in a coastal resort. So at this point in the story, I'm still going to nutrition school, I'm spending more time with Tiana, and I'm working part-time at a busy resort spa. Up to this point, massage was just a skill I was trying to learn. But once I started working at the spa, something unexpected began to unfold. When I first started doing massage, I was coming at it from an engineering mindset. Focused on anatomy, muscle mechanics, and how they work together. It was safe, it was structured, and I was in control. But like I talked about in the last episode, when I started working at the resort, it didn't take long before I noticed a one-to-one correspondence between the stories my clients were telling me and what I was feeling under my hands. I realized their bodies were a direct reflection of their lives. I could tell with just the first touch so much about them, their personality, how they handled problems, even the kind of work they did. In this episode, I want to share a few of the patterns I started to see because it isn't just that someone's muscles are tight, it's that they're tight in a specific way that reflects what's going on in their life. And I'm going to try to present this inherently unstructured information in a logical, structured way. But first, I want to back up for a minute and talk about what happens in the very first moments of a massage. When a client comes in and gets on the table, the first thing I'm going to ask them to do is to take a deep breath. There's a lot of information just in the way they take that breath. If it's long and measured, that's usually a good sign. If it's short and quick, it usually means they're under a lot of stress, they've got a lot to do, they may think they don't even have time for this massage, that kind of thing. There were a lot of stressed out Silicon Valley people who came to this resort, so short, quick breaths were common. I know that stress very well. I was in that world for 20 years. Once they take a deep breath, on the exhale, I place my hands on them. One on the upper back, one on the lower back. Now, at that point, that first touch, not only am I getting a good read on what their life is like, they are making a silent decision about me. They are subconsciously deciding whether or not I'm trustworthy. We're both getting information about each other. Then I press in and begin a gentle rocking motion. It's a calming technique many therapists use at the beginning. It's soothing for the client and surprisingly revealing for me. Right away, I get a feel for their body's overall demeanor. From there, I move down the body from upper back to feet, pressing along the muscles to get a general sense of how that body is holding itself. I start to feel how the body is configured to meet the demands of the person's life, like reading the architecture of their body. At this point, people often notice their muscles are tight in certain places, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I worked in the garden all day," or "I just worked out yesterday, that's why my muscles are tight." But that's not what I'm feeling. What I'm feeling can't be created in a day. It's a structure, it's an architecture. It takes years to create because what the body will do is configure itself in a way that's reflective of the person's life. And that configuration is what's causing the muscle pain and tightness. So when I put my hands on someone and their muscles are tight, They're not just tight. They're tight in a specific way that tells me something about how that person lives. For instance, there were some backs where the moment I placed my hands on them, they felt like cement, that kind of dense, unyielding feel. This can mean a few different things depending on the quality of the feel. One possibility is protection, like a shield, like a coat of armor. So, when people say, especially to sensitive people, you need to develop a thick skin. And I really don't like it when people say that because the body will actually do that. It will develop a hard shield around itself to protect it from negative energies. And that's good news, bad news. The good news is it works. Those tight muscles will definitely shield you. The bad news is it comes at a cost. Tight muscles, less circulation, and less sensitivity. The body is less open and less trusting. It's closed in and tight. And for years people would say that to me. You need to develop a thick skin. And I'm so happy I didn't. I can feel shifts and signals that most people don't even notice. And that sensitivity helped me understand what certain kinds of tightness really meant. So, a protective shield is one of the reasons a body might feel extremely tight. Another very similar pattern I noticed was something I started calling the turtle shell. Similar to the shield, but it's shaped more like a turtle shell. It has a little hump to it, and it's very hard. When I see and feel a back like that, what it usually means is that they were traumatized at a very young age and they had to protect themselves. So their body formed a hard shell like a turtle to protect their very sensitive heart. The more trauma they experience, the harder that shell is going to be. This is very typical in families where one of the parents was an alcoholic and they needed to protect themselves from the emotional abuse. So their bodies formed a hard shell to protect them from that energy. This shell will last for decades, long after the abuse is over. I felt this shell on a 90-year-old woman. And when I asked her about her childhood, she knew exactly what I was referring to. The shell was still there from the trauma she had when she was 7. It was still very alive for her 80 years later. I love that her body did this for her. I love that her body found a way to protect her. So tight muscles can form protection, but another reason is when someone is in charge, a manager, someone running the show, nose to the grindstone. With that kind of back, there's a fierceness to it, a kind of force and a solid strength. I can usually tell managers on first touch. And when I feel a particularly deep, thick strength, it's often someone who manages hundreds of people. It's like their body has configured itself to help them do that job. And there were a lot of company heads who came to the resort, and I could spot them on first touch. Another reason the back might be tight has nothing to do with strength, power, or protection. Sometimes it's because the body is holding back a passion that is trying to break through. It could be something creative, something they love, a project they really want to work on. This passion feels like a fire, a burning inferno that wants to come out and express itself. But for whatever reason, they're holding it back. Maybe they're stuck in a job or prioritizing other things or telling themselves they don't have time, got to pay the bills, got to be responsible. So the body steps in and says, nope, can't go there, not safe, not now. And it locks that passion down, building a thick wall of cement around the body in the form of extremely tight muscles. First touch feels like a solid block, and the stronger that creative fire is trying to come through, the thicker the cement is holding it back. I can press as hard as I want, but I won't get through that wall. The only thing that can break through and soften those tight muscles is if the person starts to take time each day to do what it is they love to do. Do what it is they're passionate about. That will break down the wall. So the body will do whatever it takes to help you with your life. If you believe you need protection, the body will help you by building a shield. If you believe you don't have time for your passion, the body will block it. If you have a job where you're constantly fighting fires, the body has a good configuration for that too. The body doesn't judge what it is you believe you need or want, it just does it. So those are just a few common configurations. There's more of them. I always joke that new startups should hire me to massage everyone, and I could tell them what kind of role, according to the person's body configuration, they would excel in. Who are the managers, HR people, detailed people, visionaries? Completely unethical, but I could do it. Another configuration I feel on first touch is grief. The way I feel grief in the body is on first touch, the body just feels heavy, like there's 800 pounds of wet blankets on them. Something is weighing them down. It's usually a death or a breakup, maybe both. Something that's causing deep grief. Could be grief that just happened or happened years ago and they haven't fully processed it yet. What's interesting is that the body will also feel this heaviness when they haven't gotten enough sleep. So without enough sleep, the body goes from being alive and vibrant to being heavy and weighed down. I find it interesting that deep grief and lack of sleep have similar feels, and that just shows me the importance of sleep to the body. So all of these are just some examples of how the body configures itself in direct response to a person's life. And when I give a massage, the information I get from the body comes in layers. The first layer, like I talked about, is the overall architecture. How is the body configured? What does the body feel like overall? What's the general sense I get about how this person moves through life? Are they protecting themselves? Are they powering through? I feel the physical imprint of how they cope with their life. Then there's a deeper layer. I notice the way the muscle behaves under my hand is a direct reflection of the client's personality. I can tell if someone is standoffish, trusting, reactive, just from how their muscles respond to my touch. The muscle's personality mirrors the client's personality, and that gives me even more insight. I can usually get a good sense of what someone's life is like on first touch. And a lot of times it's very different from how they're presenting themselves. Sometimes during a massage, someone will say, "Oh yeah, I'm really easygoing, super laid back." And I'll say, yeah, no, that's not what your body is saying. It's actually telling me quite the opposite." And I'll tell them what their body is saying. It usually catches them off guard, but it also drops their defenses. It opens up a conversation about who they really are. But the body always tells the truth. The body actually cannot lie. And on first touch, I can get to the truth fast. I remember one day a loud woman lawyer came in. She was harsh, edgy, and condescending, directing me, making sure I knew who was in charge. Ugh, she was a lot. So I said as little as possible. I just wanted to get her on the table and get my hands on her because I knew her body would tell me the real story. So she gets on the table, and on first touch, I immediately saw what her life was like. And it was nothing like how she was presenting. And I say, "Ooh, I am so onto you." And she just starts crying. I know, she says through her tears. "I can feel that you know." She could feel from that touch. I knew her story and the pain she was living with. Because the body doesn't lie, it tells the story. I remember one day my housemate and I were out and about. He was a young college student, easygoing, calm, loved to bake, super kind and friendly. We were getting a tour of a place, and I asked the woman giving the tour if she could take a picture of us. And I nonchalantly put my hand on his back to pose for the picture. And I did a double take. There was a whole other world under my hand than what he presented. It was shocking. I couldn't believe what I was feeling. In his body was like all the little who's in Dr. Seuss's Whoville going, "We're here, we're here, we're here." We're both smiling for the picture, but inside I'm like, what in the world is going on with him? I didn't say anything at first, but later on that night in the kitchen, I said to him, "Hey, did you notice I put my hand on your back when we took that picture?" He nodded, "Yeah." "And you know I can read backs, right?" He said, "Yeah." "Well, what I felt was very different than what you've been presenting to me." And he said, "I won't deny that." I said, "You show up as easygoing and calm, but that's not what's really going on, is it?" He said, "I won't deny that." Long story short, he had been hit by a truck when he was a teenager, and his body was still vividly remembering that trauma. That wasn't the only time the body revealed something unexpected. Another shocking revelation came when I gave a massage to my ex. I talked about him back in the first episode. We were both engineers, and the experience with him became the catalyst for me going to massage school. He had given me a massage once and then said those two dreaded words, "my turn." I didn't know what I was doing. My hands hurt. I hated every second of it. I thought an hour had gone by, but it had only been 7 minutes. So when I left engineering, I decided to go to massage school just so I wouldn't be so bad at it. Flash forward a decade, I'm about to give him a massage, only now I've got a whole lot of knowledge in my hands. And on that first touch, I felt a whole other world I had known nothing about. What his body was saying was completely different from the person I thought I knew. And that's when it really hit me. You don't always know the full truth about someone, even if you've known them for decades, because the personality can hide things, but the body can't. The body always tells the truth. And after that, let's just say, any potential new boyfriend was going to get a massage from me right away. Might as well put that secret little superpower to good use. And if I'm giving someone a hug, I often take an extra few seconds just to check in with what their back is saying. Or if I'm in a conversation with someone, I might nonchalantly place a hand on their back. One time, a friend actually caught me doing that. She pointed to the person I was talking to and shouted, "Watch out, she's reading you." You try it sometime. Next time you hug someone, hold it for a few extra seconds. Pretend their body is talking to you. What do you imagine it's saying? Especially if you've been told you're too sensitive your whole life, you, in particular, may have a superpower. So, as we close off episode 4 of Coding Wellness, if you try that longer hug and notice something, feel free to share it in the comments on Instagram or Facebook. In the next episode, I'll share the 3 pivotal massages that changed everything for me. Thank you for listening to Coding Wellness, created and hosted by me, Mary Toscano. I hope today's episode gave you valuable insights and inspiration for your own path. You can follow Coding Wellness on Instagram and Facebook. Please rate and review the podcast, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. This podcast is meant to be listened to in order. Each episode builds on the last. So if you're just jumping in, I encourage you to go back and start from the beginning. Take care and remember, there is extraordinary potential that lies within all of us. Each one of us has talents and gifts uniquely our own, and a place where we shine the brightest. The more we live from this place, the happier we are. And remember, life, like software, can be debugged, rewritten, and optimized. Bye for now.